Some oven mitts would have been awfully decent right now, I must say.
Okay, so E3 is next week. We got a lot of stuff planned out for you. We're going to have all kinds of discussions about what's revealed, what's talked about, as well as at the end of the week we have the Man of Steel coming out. Yes, finally! But this week I thought I'd kind of tone things down and not spend so much time on kind of prospecting on what might be shown at E3 and talk more about what is actually kind of going on right now. And with this, I wanted to talk about the most recent thing that I've seen, and that's the discussion of possibly having a tax on violent video games. And this is something that's been going on for a while. You know, there's always the controversy of violence in video games. Oh, if something bad happens, well, he played Call of Duty or he played these other games. And I never really understood the correlation between that. I understand that video games are an interactive medium. But to that extent, what stops being an interactive medium? Is television an interactive medium? Is movies an interactive medium? Where do we draw the line? And where do we start saying, okay, well, you know, just because it is a video game doesn't necessarily mean that it breeds bad behavior. In fact, I actually believe the opposite. I believe it's a great way to vent any frustrations or anything like that you might have. But of course, you have these people who are looking for anything and anyone to blame when something terrible happens. And it's just something that we've come to kind of accept as a society nowadays, is that we don't want to accept that there are just bad things that happen in the world. We have to find something to blame. And for some reason, video games have become the target of this. And it's one of those things where, okay, so if television and movies are protected under the First Amendment, why not video games? Why do the developers and publishers have to be punished for putting out a game that is fully in their vision just because parents aren't taking the necessary precautions and stopping their kids from playing these games or stopping buying these violent games for their kids? The thing to me is, a video game is $60 right now. That's a lot of money, especially for a kid working off an allowance or maybe just going and begging the parents. It's much easier to actually witness these violent acts either on TV or in movies. It's much easier for them to get a hold of that kind of material that way, but for some reason, that's just kind of scarred over. No one really pays attention to that. You could watch TV like CSI, NCIS, all these other shows that are completely dedicated around vicious acts of murder and mayhem, and basically have these programs where they're teaching you how to perfect the perfect crime. But no one talks about that. Whenever something happens, it's not, oh, he was an avid CSI watcher, or oh, he watched the Saw franchise, or his favorite movie was Heat. No, it's, he played Call of Duty. He played Call of Duty Zombies. Something where it's all virtual, but for some reason people like to believe that there's that correlation between actually interacting in the virtual world and using those skills that you learn in a video game somehow in real life. I've never really understood how you get from point A to point B and completely skip over the fact that movies have been doing this for years. Whenever Gone with the Wind came out and Clark Gable came out and said,
"Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn,"
there were people out rioting in the streets because he used a curse word in a movie. No, that's still regarded as one of the greatest movies of all time. And the Saw franchise actually spawned a new kind of subgenre called torture porn. It actually is something where people go to movies to watch people get tortured in terrible, terrible ways and usually end up dying. But all of these are completely ignored. They even play these on cable TV, which in most homes is readily available. But for some reason, video games are the target. And it also brings up the question of, well, if you start taxing violent video games, who decides what's going to be classified as a violent video game? Like, I understand, like, probably the Call of Duty games are classified, you know, of course, as a violent video game. There's a lot of mature content in there, people shooting other people, a lot of war, stuff like that. But where do you draw the line? Like, is Super Mario Brothers considered a violent video game? You're jumping up and down on Koopas, killing them, killing enemies. Is Angry Birds, one of the most popular video game franchises right now, considered a violent video game? No, of course not. I think the pigs might disagree, but it's not. This is the thing. We have this rating system, the MPAA for movies. They determine whether or not it's going to be a G, PG, PG-13, R, or NC-17. And then we also have the ESRB, who determine whether or not it's going to be a everyone game, a teen game, a mature game, an adults-only game. These are the things that not only the consumer, but the people selling the game are supposed to be looking out for. If you see a kid coming up saying, Mommy, Mommy, I want the new Grand Theft Auto, and the mom just buys it, you as the seller have a responsibility to tell the parents, this is what's in this game. And I think a lot of that is just completely skated over. Nobody really pays attention to that, even though it is their responsibility as not only the consumer or the parent or the seller of the product to make sure that everyone is fully informed. It says right on the product what is in the game, what the game is about. But it's one of those things where this generation of parents have become just give the kid what he wants. Forget what happens, just give the kid what he wants, let him go play, and we'll deal with it later. But of course then, these are the same parents who if something terrible happens, they're immediately blaming the same video game that they bought for their kids, even though whatever terrible thing might have occurred didn't actually happen to their family, to their kid. They still want something and someone to blame, but they won't take the video game away from their kid. It's just much easier to give them what they want and let them be quiet.
That's some good brownies.
Okay, like I said, next week we're going to have a lot of E3 coverage. Be sure to leave any questions or comments you have in the section below, and I'll be sure to get back to them as soon as I can. And also, if you want to see something specific on the show, go ahead and send me a comment, and be sure to click that subscribe button up there, and we'll see you next time.